First up, find out why and how the film business gets encouraged or discouraged to shoot here in our state. Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Cheyenne Autumn, Star Trek the Motion Picture, Dances with Wolves. What do all of these famous feature films have in common? They were all shot in part or in whole in Wyoming. Film, art, and entertainment specialist Colin Strickland of the Wyoming Film Office joined me earlier to talk about the role film and video productions play in our state's culture and economy. Colin, I'm glad you could come and talk to us today. What is a film commissioner?
Well, basically a film commissioner is a marketer. It's my job to sell Wyoming to the production industry, meaning Hollywood, meaning New York filmmakers. Basically, it started as the liaison between a location, the city, the town, the state, what have you, and the filmmaker. So, if someone wants to come in and shoot their feature and, someone else is, less than hospitable, less than, well, I don't want parking on outside my store, we try and step in and, be that communicator. And a big part, too, is really fostering the production industry in state. It's trying to help out the local filmmakers.
So do you actively pursue filmmakers to come and use Wyoming as their background?
Absolutely, absolutely. We go to a lot of trade shows. We have our contacts that we'll periodically check up with producers we've worked with before. Say, hey, have you got anything for us? I hope to see you again. Come on back out. But God, it's such a relationship business. It's all about knowing the people that you want to come in and approaching them.
Mm-hmm. Have there been some big productions here lately?
Well, lately in relative terms, Wyoming is not a big feature state. We do a lot of our bread and butter work, automotive commercials, and a lot of backdrops, a lot of B-roll type stuff. But shoot, back in 2006, most recently, we had Flicka. They were filming up in Sheridan area. They nailed the time of year there too, as Green Hills and all that. Before that, we had Starship Troopers, we had bits of Rocky IV back in the day, and shit, it goes all the way back. There's an old film history in Wyoming. Shane was shot here, that famous comeback Shane scene right in front of the Grand Teton.
Amazing. Well, then I imagine during the heyday of the Western, Wyoming could have been a real filming hotspot.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, we have spectacular scenery here, really and truly, and when Hollywood was young, so many years ago, we had quite a few, I mean, I've seen the list, quite a few features that just utilized Wyoming to its fullest. But that's when location was really leading the way. That's when the look was the important thing. And the industry's moved away from that in recent years.
How so?
Well, in the film commission work, in film office work, there's a thing called incentives, and it started back in the 90s with Canada deciding to really build up their industry and start incentivizing films financially. Basically, come to Canada, we'll give you a tax break if you decide to film here. If you hire this many of our crew members, we'll give you this much more back. And geez, this was absolutely huge. This began to steal production away from American locations, away from Hollywood even. And since then, America's had to fight back, as it were. There are every state now, almost every state, has its own incentive program, and Wyoming is no exception.
What are some of the incentives?
We have a 12 to 15% cash rebate. Most of the incentives are a tax break sort of thing, but in Wyoming, it's straight up, if you spend a minimum of $200,000 here, we'll give you 12 to 15% of that in-state spend back at the end of your production.
Does this bring in a lot of work?
It does bring in some. It's been going for about 3 years now, and it's not just for bringing in the work. It's also, like I said at the beginning, supporting the in-state. We've had 11 productions apply for it so far, and we've had a couple of large documentaries, is what it is. When my boss founded this thing, Michelle Howard, the film commissioner, founded this thing. A few years ago, it was set at $500,000 was the minimum to qualify for the expenditure, and not a lot of folks were taking advantage of it. And that's again because Wyoming is not typically a big production state. We're large documentary, we can be large commercial, but those aren't quite hitting the $500,000 mark. So when we set it back down to $200,000, they just came pouring in.
So do we have some homegrown filmmakers right here in Wyoming?
Absolutely. Jackson is really the hot spot. We have a lot of extreme sports filmmakers, a lot of documentarians up around the parks. I think our most recent incentive application was actually for a cougar documentary, mountain lions, and you know, they worked on it for a couple of years and got some fabulous photography, and now we're happy to pay back that investment in Wyoming that they gave.
You have an annual short film contest?
Oh yeah, it was a bit of a marketing idea for us. But basically, for those filmmakers that can't hit 200,000, we want to help them too. So it's a short film contest that launches every January. It's got to be under 15 minutes long, and it's got to have some tie to Wyoming, whether you shot it here, whether the storyline takes place here, what have you. And there's a $25,000 first place prize, which I'm given to understand is pretty significant for film contests. The catch being that you need to spend the $25,000 on your next in Wyoming production.
You brought a sample clip. Would you describe what we're about to see?
Oh, sure. This is a short compilation of clips from some of our recent short film contests. Are a lot of the winners and a lot of the top place finishers.
Let's take a look at that.
Sure.
Well, that certainly looked like a wide variety.
Oh, certainly. I mean, you see the typical Western. Absorca that just won, a fellow by the name of Patrick Mignano. He was actually the location manager on Starship Troopers, is how we first met him. So he sort of stuck with us, and even though he's out in LA now, he always wanted to come back and do what he could. And man, he put together some fantastic photography up around the Cody area, just those mountains in the background. But shoot, there's any number of student filmmakers that have finished highly, folks out of Jackson for the skiing type stuff, the big air type skiing. You see a lot of that every year, and it's always good.
So I'm curious, are most of these filmmakers people who come from other places like LA or New York?
Well, yeah, yes and no. There are quite a few indigenous Wyoming folks that you know, they go away to learn their craft, and then they come back. They go to LA Film School, they go to the New York Film School, and then they want to live in Wyoming. They want to do what they've been trained to do in Wyoming, and that's really what my office is all about: is building the crew. When I say that there aren't we're not a big feature state, I would love to change that. We can be. We absolutely have the reason for a large film to come here. If you're talking about big Western, if you're talking about wide open spaces, yes, absolutely. But the problem, it really is one of infrastructure. And it's a matter of having those people, having those crew people that can man a large film come in so that large production companies can take advantage of our incentive. They get more back if they hire locals. Out-of-state folks don't count.
So you need trained crew people.
Absolutely. Absolutely, and that's what we're doing a little bit of workforce development right now. We're talking with some of the community colleges and seeing if we can build something up. But geez, in the past we've done grip and electric classes, because those are, you know, the basic stuff, the basic lighting, the basic cable runners. We need folks that can have that big set experience, that can be here when the movie comes.
The incentives sunset next year, is that true? And what will happen when that happens?
We've seen a lot of success since we lowered the minimum from 500 to 200,000, and you know, I can't picture a lot of legislators looking at that and saying, well, I know this isn't worth continuing. The majority of those projects were Wyoming-based production companies. They were, from Jackson. They were from, at least partially, they were from this state. And, there are people that are really honestly trying to make a go of it. So in that sense, we're recommending strongly that we continue with the program. If it doesn't go forward, it's really the reason we passed in the first place. We weren't in the game.
Colin Strickland, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
If you'd like to know more about film projects in Wyoming, go to www.film.wyoming for the Wyoming Film Office's website.